You're listening to the Walled Garden podcast. This podcast is a part of the Walled Garden online community, a community dedicated to sharing and discussing philosophy, beliefs, ideas, and creativity among all types of people, in order to gain new insight on some of life's biggest questions and make the most of how we live. We appreciate you joining us. Hey everyone, this is Jake, one of the contributors to the Walled Garden. Before we dive into this week's episode, I wanted to give just a bit of context on what you're about to hear. This segment was recorded during our first virtual meetup of the Walled Garden, a community and project that's still in its early stages. For that reason, in our initial meetups and episodes, we're going to be hearing from our four main contributors about their vision for the future of this community and what they hope to contribute. This week, we're hearing from Simon Drew, the primary founder of the Walled Garden, and you may know him as the previous host of the Practical Stoic podcast. These initial episodes will serve to help us identify what we as a community want the Walled Garden to be. Members are invited to attend these virtual recordings live, where they can provide their own feedback and thoughts after the initial presentation from the contributor. If you'd like to learn more about all that the Walled Garden currently offers, as well as become a member to join these discussions about the vision of this community, we'd invite you to explore thewalledgarden.com. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode.
All right, so I'm going to take you into the back end of the website today. And I've actually created a page. I thought so I'm going to probably make it maybe about a 15 to half an hour, 15 minutes to half an hour presentation, I would say, just when I was thinking about what I wanted to contribute to the Walled Garden, I kept on thinking actually kind of about Sharon's ideas the other day. You know, I can't remember exactly what you said, Sharon, but it was along the lines of allowing ourselves to be prompted by the kind of innocent, revelations of the soul, you might say. I know that that's a massive paraphrasing, but allowing ourselves to go on the adventure of thinking and to feel comfortable sharing the depths of whatever is bubbling up, from within us. And so the other day I kind of was thinking about what do I want to share and how do I want to share it. So I went for a walk along the beach, listening to some music, was really thinking about things, stopping to take notes every so often. And I compiled a sort of epistle of sorts, you might say, or, with intermittent poetry. And so what I wanted to do today is to read that to you and to, I guess, offer whatever this is as my contribution to the Walled Garden going forward. So this epistle, you might call it, is called On Radical Claims of Enlightenment, or My Vision of the Walled Garden. And by the way, this is an image of some of the local wildflowers that grow in a valley near where I live. And just walking through those wildflower fields lately has just been the biggest inspiration to me, because they're just stunning, they're just wild, they just burst forth, and capture your attention. And so anyway, I'm gonna read this to you. And can everybody see this page here? Excellent. Yes. So feel free to read along. Throughout our lives, we are liable to stumble upon or be presented with a number of radical claims. Many of these claims promise unrivaled personal transformation, direct revelatory access to the deepest wisdom of the ages, and ultimately the attainment of enlightenment, or something thereof. The prevalence of such claims in particularly all global cultures has been something of a stone in my shoe throughout the past few years, for the very existence of these claims must beg the question of all who are awake. If I'm being offered a path to enlightenment, which by definition is the highest of aims, why would I refuse to walk it? After all, if offered a home, a car, or a holiday free of charge, the modern man would likely accept such a gift with much enthusiasm, immediately assigning great worth and desirability to the gift on offer. And yet I struggle to believe that he would accept the offer of enlightenment with such enthusiasm. The reasons he might not accept such an offer appear to me to be threefold. First, he may have become cynical of such claims in sight of the fact that so many people who have made these claims have in times past been revealed as frauds, tricksters, or fools. In such a case, the cynical person must be reassured that their assessment of these preachers of enlightenment is and always has been devastatingly true. I myself remember falling into the trap of cynicism as I left the church of my youth. I remember all the people who stood up in church and bore their testimony of Christ, who in a sense represents the Christian path to enlightenment. I remember citing as one of my reasons for having left the church the multiple accounts of those same people who bore their testimonies later being revealed as scam artists, child abusers, or worse. Nonetheless, sufficient time and a little bit of better wisdom have taught me that cynicism with the frailty of human virtue is no reason to leave an otherwise beautiful community or to stray from the path of enlightenment that has been offered to me by my parents and ancestors. Rather, this excuse for leaving the path seems to be a sign of one's pride, for it assumes that one has moral superiority over the hypocrites by leaving the path, when in fact, to stray from such a path on these grounds only proves that a person has not yet learned how to sift the wheat from the chaff. And so I say to those who are cynical with the path of enlightenment, wherever you find it, consider the hypocrites and fools not as hindrances to the way, but as symbols of the difficulty of the path and thus of the worth of its attainment. And consider this too, that the hypocrites and fools need not deter you from contributing to these communities, but rather they should provide you with yet another reason to stay, even that you might revivify the culture and let others and lead others to accept in their hearts the very goodness that they have in times past rejected through their actions. The second reason why a person may reject the path of enlightenment has to do with fear. We fear enlightenment because of who we would have to become, or perhaps more often because of what we would have to leave behind in order to attain it. When Jesus, for example, tells the wealthy man that it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God, this is no critique of money. Rather, it's an invitation to leave behind anything and everything that would keep you away from what is most important, most sacred, most enlightened, or dare I say, most near to God. And so we must say to those who reject the way because they fear it, that they are right to fear it, because it may very well be the case that they are so bound by their faults, addictions, and desires that to become enlightened would mean walking away from almost everything that they believe they love and cherish. Such a view is obviously terrifying, and it's because it is terrifying that one is able to employ the virtue of courage, which is the appropriate virtue to employ against such fears. And this also we must say to those who fear the way, that it is unwise to be tormented by what we would have to leave behind when the good that we are called to seek is far greater than anything that could possibly keep one in the darkness. Or said in another way, we must not be so focused on what we will lose that we become blind to what it is that we have to gain. Finally, a person may reject the call of enlightenment because of shame. They may look at their own efforts in life. They may assess their own faults, concluding consciously or not that they are unworthy of enlightenment. And so they will inevitably hide the light that shines from within, and they will not seek the way. This is perhaps the most tragic of reasons to not pursue enlightenment, for it is precisely those people who feel shame and guilt who are in dire need of the medicine of the soul, which is to be found along the path of enlightenment. Thus, we must assure those who hide themselves away that all are welcome on the path of enlightenment, and that there are no prerequisites to starting or taking that first step in the direction of what would be good. And this too, we must make clear that it is good to inquire within. It is good to nurture what is broken and to nourish what is growing and to seek that which shines. To seek not these things is to reject deeper wisdom and to allow oneself to move away from what is heavenly and towards what is hellish. For there evil lures thee, there ye go running. There ye fear God, for there he deals thy reward, and all have their reward. It must also be said that in the very worst case, a person may be guided by all three of these reasons for rejecting the call to enlightenment. In such a case, they will become bitter and angry at the evils they see in the world. They will see that their own sacrifices have not been accepted, perhaps, and they will fear what would be required of them to obtain enlightenment. And they will feel deep shame and guilt for their position on the holy mountain, you might say. Such a person will be liable to mimic Cain and will become nihilistic and bitter and dangerous to themselves and others. To this person, we say with hope and compassion that while the world does contain much evil, and I know, Kai, we will disagree on that, but nonetheless, there is yet a light that shines in the darkness. We say also that while their sacrifice has not been accepted and while they mourn in shameful dark corners, it is yet never too late to offer a new sacrifice and to become renewed. And so it is that a person cannot move towards what is best for them when they are trapped in these worlds of pride, fear, and shame. Of course, one need not be completely free of these feelings in order to begin on the path, but one must at least learn how to overcome them in order to seek what is good. In order to do this, one must first learn how to actually hear the call of enlightenment. For if one truly hears the call of enlightenment, then one will at the same time feel the gravity of such a calling. Take, for example, these words from the poet Heraclitus. These words have just caught me, in times past. The oneness of all wisdom may be found or not under the name of God. Heraclitus was a freaky poetic genius, and so when reading such a claim, many people are either too cynical of the idea of God to give pause to that claim, or else they are so unmindful when they read it that it would be a miracle for them to catch anything of worth from it. Therefore, to read such a statement is not enough. Words like these must be pondered. One must sit with these words on high mountaintops, and one must allow the possibilities of such a statement to sink into the deepest and darkest recesses of his soul. Is it true that the oneness of all wisdom may be found? And is it true that it may be found through God? May we commune with God? And if so, how might we do that? Until we learn to ask these questions honestly, we cannot fully grasp the magnitude of such a claim, and thus it will have no power to transform us. I'm reminded of a sacred line that I was taught in my youth coming from the Mormon holy text. And, I'll pause here just for a moment to let you guys know that when I'm talking about these, lines from Jesus or these lines from Heraclitus or from the holy text of my own religious upbringing, I say them not in an evangelizing way, trying to call people to these religions, but in a way to allow us to pause and see what lies within these kinds of statements, what they can teach us and what they can get us to think about. So in this Mormon holy text, it says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering, for he that wavereth is like a wave upon the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. As for me, I'm not yet convinced that modern man, including myself, has learned how to ask for wisdom with the intensity spoken of in these lines. And thus, I do not believe that the frontiers of wisdom have been explored with sufficient rigor. To truly ask a question is not, as Jordan Peterson has explained, to simply mouth the words of the question. To ask a question, one must truly desire a response, for it is only when one has desired a response that one may receive. If one is lucky enough to have learned how to truly ask and to truly listen and to truly desire a response to one's questions, then one may find that the way appears. It is then that a man must learn how to heed such a response to his heartfelt yearnings. And I might pause here as well, just to let you guys know, I know we are a group of 50% women here. When I say things like man and he and all this sort of stuff, please know that it's coming from a place of trying to write in these styles of old where it means everybody, right? But that's just the style that naturally flows through. So to heed is to take notice and to sit with a thought or an answer to a heartfelt question. To heed is to accept the call of deeper wisdom and to take the first step towards the fulfillment of such wisdom in one's life with humility and courage at the ready. To heed is to go on a grand adventure in spite of one's fear and shame. To heed is to have faith in one's own ability to be transformed. And it is to allow oneself to be guided by the same spirit that has lifted men and women to greater heights since the dawn of time. And so we must heed the call to deeper wisdom if we are to walk on the path of enlightenment. For to not heed such a call would be to deny having heard it in the first place and to become willfully blind and to commit a suicide of the soul. Finally, to truly walk on the path of enlightenment, we must, as Seneca suggested, be satisfied with the goods of our souls as proof of our progress towards this greatest of all destinations. We must not hide behind flimsy moral statements, empty condemnations, or ill-conceived and cynical excuses for our failings. We must rather reflect what is good through the way that we live our lives, for the enlightened person may only be discerned by their ability to bring others into their own story by illuminating the world around them with the light of virtue. This is a little poem that I wrote. In the garden at night, the fool wanders along dark paths, while the wise man follows paths lit by the moon. The sage reflects the light of the moon and thus lights all ways. And so you ask me, what is my vision for the walled garden? What will I contribute? What will be my offering to this endeavor? Well, I can say with complete confidence that I have not yet reached the destination that Seneca talked of, though I will admit that I am certainly a patient in his hospital. My soul has not yet been cured of its ailments, and in fact, there are many days when I feel like I add more troubles than remedies to my old wounds, which is why I've sought cure in philosophy. But even though I am just another wayward traveler on a dusty road far from home, perhaps what I can offer to this community is a story of my travels, both where I've come from and where I hope to go. Perhaps simply by the way I walk down this road, I can help people to hear something and to see something and to feel something, and perhaps even to know something. Maybe as I tell tales of the sights I've seen and of the paths I've forged, I will bring new life to these radical claims of enlightenment, which have been spoken of by so many minds greater than mine. And finally, as I learn to walk boldly beyond the boundaries of my own thinking, and as I confront with courage and wisdom the frontiers of my own mind, perhaps I will find something of great worth, something which was once hidden far beyond the distant hills, you might say, and something which I may bring back to my village that it may be shared. In times of flood, the great men of old sought higher ground. In more recent times, they sought gardens of the mind. Now we seek the kingdom of heaven. It's the time-tested way, though it is, as Heraclitus wrote, the known way is an impasse. We always have to push towards the unknown way and allow ourselves to be guided into what is unknown. And so maybe through my writing, poetry, photography, and music, or the goods of my soul, I can tell a story of my own wrestling with the experience of enlightenment, bruises and all. And before you catch me out, yes, I'm a fool, a trickster, a hypocrite, a clown, a deception of nature, and a snake oil salesman. But at the back of my mind is always this one radical claim that perhaps, just maybe, I could be the fool who, if he persists in his folly, will stumble upon something resembling wisdom. And that maybe, just maybe, in doing so, I could lead many from out of the desert and into a luscious garden where good fruits grow and where sweet water flows. And this is the final poem that I wrote. So let us not now be dismayed by the foolish games we've often played, but let us seek the brighter way that we may walk by the light of day. And let us humbly hear the ancient wisdom of the past. Let us heed this wisdom, that the way might not be past. And let us be a strength to those whose souls are now in need, for the sages of old have taught us that all humans can be freed. And in this luscious garden, let us humbly seek the way that our souls may be aligned as we through these wild flowers play. So I was hoping that perhaps to finish this section, I could actually play some music for you guys. This is actually a song that is the first part of a new album that I've got coming out very soon. There's about an hour of the album. I think this is about 8 minutes. But what I'd encourage you to do, this is what you'll hear in this song, I think perfectly represents what I'm trying to do with my writing, with my poetry, with my music, with my photography, all this sort of stuff. I'm struggling upwards towards something that is better, something that maybe even is best. I'm trying to look for what is the thing that leads to enlightenment. And so I've been obviously studying theology recently. That's been my new path. And I've been thinking about, in the Bible, in the Old Testament, you have the Jewish people who are constantly going in and out of deserts. They're in a desert now, and then they finally arrive at a new heavenly place, and then they're exiled again. And this is really what this music speaks to. So in here, you'll hear my trumpet, you'll hear me singing, you'll hear a whole bunch of weird sounds, you'll hear my piano, some nature as well. And what you'll hear is that struggling upwards towards something beautiful, a garden of the mind. And I just encourage you, if you want to take these 8 minutes to meditate, to breathe, just to listen to the music, close your eyes. Even if you want to turn your video off, I don't care if it just means that you can feel comfortable just being in the music. It's completely up to you. So this one's called, what's it called? I have no idea what it's called. We'll just listen. Okay, I'll quietly wake you up from your slumber. So I guess, everybody, in closing, what I'm really looking to contribute to the walled garden is this bringing people into that kind of journey that I'm on through, whether it is my music or my poetry or my writing or my, or my photography or whatever it is that I'm artistically seeking within those artistic expressions is the same thing. When I'm writing poetry, I'm doing philosophy. When I'm playing music, I'm doing philosophy because I'm searching for something, and I convey through my music what I cannot convey through my poetry, and I convey in my poetry what I cannot show in my music or in my philosophy. And so I'm bringing these things together in a hope that perhaps what I create can help people to see something different, to feel something different, to hear something different, perhaps to come to know themselves better. And so that's what I'm really excited about for this community, is just it's the potential that it has for being a place where I can just throw out whatever is being poured out of my soul, you might say, as Seneca says, the goods of my soul, throw it out there and see how it helps people. And so I'm open to questions, comments, judgments, anything. I'll throw it out there.
Thanks for listening to the Walled Garden podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd invite you to subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes posted weekly. If you are interested in gaining access to a wide range of additional content and participating directly in our discussions, visit us at thewalledgarden.com to see what different membership options have to offer. Thanks again, and we hope to have you back.